Minneapolis is sitting near 100 degrees today, and that heat is the only thing holding back violent tornadoes. 13.2 million people sit inside today's marginal severe weather zone from Minneapolis to Madison to Tucson. Plus a compact Category 2 hurricane closing in on Honolulu, same atmosphere, completely separate disaster. Same atmosphere, 3 separate disasters, all of it happening on the same Saturday, July 25th. But here's the twist, nobody else is explaining the heat might actually be your shield today. At the 6-minute mark, we break down why this heat is simultaneously the threat and the protection. Stay until the end because there is good news buried inside this forecast that most are missing. Today, a slight risk covers 592,000 people in Montana and South Dakota, with 75 mph gusts possible. Great Falls, Billings, Bozeman, Pierre, and Mitchell are all inside today's severe weather zone this afternoon. Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday bring the main event 3 consecutive days of organized severe weather ahead. And driving it all is a low-pressure center expected to reach 9 to 92 millibars by Tuesday evening. 13.2 million people from Minneapolis to Wisconsin to Chicago sit in the multi-day severe weather corridor. Meanwhile, Phoenix is running at 117 degrees Fahrenheit today before a brief monsoon cool-down arrives. Death Valley overnight lows are sitting in the upper 90s, no recovery, no relief at any point. And a secondary heat ridge builds at week's end ensemble guidance, projecting 120 to 125 degrees possible. Here is what makes this pattern different from every heat event we have tracked so far this summer. 2 heat waves are stacking, one active now, one building behind it, and the second one runs hotter. Severe weather threat also carries something unusual inside it, something the models have been quietly flagging. 50-plus knots of wind, shear the kind that builds EF2 tornadoes, sits locked beneath that cap right now. All of this is connected, same ridge, same pattern, one atmosphere under extreme stress from coast to coast. Before breaking down each threat, I need to flag something the models have been quietly tracking. Wind energy capable of spinning long-track tornadoes sits locked across the upper Midwest waiting for a trigger. That shear is locked behind a heat cap so strong that storms may simply fail to initiate today. If Sunday's front weakens that cap even slightly, everything locked below it gets released and it releases fast. SPC has flagged a potential EF2 or stronger tornado in the Green Bay corridor if Sunday's cap breaks. That statement from SPC is not routine. Discrete supercell potential exists if Sunday's conditions verify correctly. What comes next is the full breakdown, starting with what is happening in Montana and South Dakota today. Today's slight risk covers 72 the 169 square miles, Billings, Great Falls, Bozeman, Mitchell, and Pierre all inside. Montana is the first region at risk this afternoon. Storms develop near the high terrain and spread east-northeastward. A pocket of spinning upper-level energy is rotating around the ridge, and it is heading toward Montana today. Localized gusts of 75-plus miles per hour cannot be ruled out across western and central Montana this afternoon. That gust potential exists because deep mixing in temperatures near 100 degrees precede the storm's arrival. Farther east, Pierre, South Dakota may reach 105 degrees Fahrenheit before storms arrive from the Black Hills. Pierre at 105 with 1,000 joules per kilogram of ML Cape. That is the recipe for catastrophic outflow winds. Outflow dominant when a storm's cold air races ahead and cuts off the storm's own energy supply. An outflow dominant system still produces damaging severe winds. It just lacks the rotation of a supercell. Some guidance depicts an organized MCS cluster developing and moving east across South Dakota by tonight. If that MCS organizes along the weak surface boundary, 75-plus mph gusts are possible across eastern South Dakota. Rapid City, Sioux Falls, Huron, and Watertown all sit in the path of that potential evening MCS track. Montana's storm threat peaks between 3 and 7 p.m. Bozeman and Billings are the early afternoon focus. Both Montana and South Dakota threats peak during late afternoon and early evening. Be weather aware before sunset today. If you are outdoors in either state this afternoon, have a way to receive severe weather alerts immediately. Now the upper Midwest conditional threat, and this is where the twist comes in. Cap a layer of warm air above the surface atmosphere, acting like a lid on a pressure cooker. Everything below that lid, the heat, the moisture, the wind shear, stores up and builds pressure beneath it. Today, across Minnesota and Wisconsin, that cap is strong, so strong that storms may simply fail to initiate. That is the most likely outcome today. The heat holds the lid down. Severe weather does not develop. But here's the data point that changes everything. 50-plus knots of effective shear sits behind that cap. 50-plus knots of effective shear is what produces long-track supercells, the ones capable of EF2 and EF3 tornadoes. If a single storm punches through that cap today, it inherits every joule of energy stored beneath it. SPC specifically flagged this impressively long hotographs with effective shear more than sufficient for storm organization, but most model guidance remains muted on storm initiation. Today confidence is very low in the upper Midwest. Today across Minneapolis, St. Paul, Rochester, and Duluth, conditional risk of baseball-sized hail and an isolated tornado. 4.5 million people in the Minneapolis metro area are inside the CIG1 hail risk zone for today. 8.2 million people across the Minneapolis and Green Bay corridor sit inside the 8% tornado risk zone. That 8% means the probability of a tornado within 25 miles of your location today. Today as conditional cap holds, probably nothing severe. Cap breaks, everything accelerates fast. Simultaneously, the heat is not background noise. It is an active emergency across much of the country today. Pierre, South Dakota is forecast for 105 degrees before any storms arrive from the Black Hills this afternoon. Oklahoma City, near 100 Wichita Falls at 100 Midland, Texas at 110. A corridor of dangerous heat today. Phoenix is running at 117 degrees Fahrenheit today before a brief monsoon interruption gives it minor relief. Death Valley overnight lows are holding in the upper 90s, meaning the body never recovers between heat exposures. Heat stress compounds night after night. That is what separates a dangerous heat event from a deadly one. Las Vegas morning temperatures already hitting 90 degrees, and the day high will reach well above 110. Bakersfield, California ensemble guidance shows 112 degrees with higher model members projecting 115 degrees today. Palm Springs ensemble mean shows 113 degrees, now rebuilding to 115 to 120 when the secondary ridge arrives. And here's the number forecasters hesitate to say publicly: 125 to 130 degrees is possible next week. Daily records, monthly records, and possibly all-time heat records are on the table for the desert Southwest. And then there is the threat that has nothing to do with the mainland Category 2 approaching Hawaii. As of this morning, a compact Category 2 sits just east of Honolulu and is moving toward Hawaii. It will likely arrive as a low to middle grade tropical storm at landfall weekend, but still a real threat. Storm surge, gusty winds, and heavy rainfall are the primary concerns for Oahu, Maui, and the Big Island. Compact systems are dangerous precisely because they concentrate their energy in a very small radius around the center. Monitor NHC advisories closely through Sunday and into Monday if you're on any of the Hawaiian Islands. Good news for Hawaii, the system degrades on approach, keeping the most intense impact mostly offshore. What connects all of this? A dominant upper-level ridge locked over the four corners in the desert Southwest. That ridge produces the heat dome out west in the storm corridor on the eastern and northeastern flanks. On the eastern flank, a series of storm systems will rotate counterclockwise into the northern plains through Tuesday. Each system rotating around the parent ridge brings another 24-hour window of organized severe weather. El Niño at +2 is keeping that ridge locked in place. It has no reason to move. Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday are each driven by a separate energy impulse rotating around the same parent ridge. That is why this is not one storm. It is a pattern generating new threats on 24-hour intervals. Sunday is when the cap weakens. The conditional becomes probable and the setup stops being tentative. A large slight risk covers all of Wisconsin, Minnesota, northern Illinois, and northern Iowa on Sunday. Sunday's front weakens the cap by afternoon, and when that lid lifts, everything stored beneath it releases. 15% probability of hurricane-force gusts, that is 75 miles per hour or higher across the Minneapolis corridor. Minneapolis, Duluth, Rochester, and Oaklair are inside that CIG1 wind risk zone for Sunday afternoon and evening. Green Bay, Appleton, Oshkosh, Janesville, and Milwaukee carry the highest tornado potential of Sunday's setup. SPC has flagged a potential EF2 or stronger tornado in the Green Bay corridor if Sunday's cap breaks. That is not routine language from SPC. Discrete supercell potential exists if Sunday's conditions verify correctly. A 2% tornado probability is on the Sunday outlook, and that number could upgrade before tomorrow morning. Sunday could see a straight upgrade to enhanced risk if morning model guidance supports higher supercell probabilities. Omaha, Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Lexington are inside Sunday's marginal risk area watch conditions through the day. Hail threat for Sunday concentrates near Green Bay and Milwaukee, 15% chance of hail exceeding 1 inch. Wind is the primary driver across the full Sunday risk area, organized clusters moving rapidly east-northeastward. Sunday's setup feeds directly into Monday, and Monday is when this pattern reaches its true peak severity. Get your shelter plan established today before Sunday afternoon arrives and conditions change without warning. Monday is when this pattern peaks, and the risk zone geography tells you exactly how serious it gets. A slight risk covers nearly all of Michigan, eastern Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, and western Pennsylvania. Chicago, Indianapolis, Cleveland, Columbus, Pittsburgh, Detroit, and Fort Wayne all inside Monday's primary threat zone. SPC has a 30% severe weather probability within 25 miles of any point in Monday's red zone. 30% is not a fringe number. That is a statistically significant baseline for a high-end event. All hazards are on the table for Monday: widespread damaging winds, large hail, and multiple tornadoes. Significant tornado parameter values are elevated across central and southern Ohio and northern Kentucky on Monday. STP, significant tornado parameter, is a composite metric forecasters use to identify long-track tornado potential. When STP is elevated and discrete supercells develop, EF2 and EF3 tornadoes become realistic outcomes, not fringe ones. Monday's low-pressure system is projected to reach 9 to 92 millibars by Tuesday evening, exceptional for any summer month. 992 millibars in July, a powerful deep summer low that keeps the severe weather window open for days. That deepening low keeps the severe threat elevated from Sunday night through Tuesday across the eastern U.S. Monday night, the system shifts east, but the threat does not weaken until Wednesday morning in the northeast. Tuesday brings the East Coast its turn, and the setup intensifies as the 992 millibar low approaches the region. Nearly the entire state of Virginia falls inside Tuesday's severe weather risk area. From upstate South Carolina through Virginia to southeastern Pennsylvania and southern New Jersey, Tuesday's threat zone. Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Annapolis, Wilmington, and Philadelphia all inside Tuesday's severe weather corridor. Low pressure at 992 millibars approaching New York generates significant wind shear from NYC to Charlotte. Tuesday's severe weather footprint may be the largest single-day area of the entire three-day event. All 3 days share the same system, but intensity increases each day as the low deepens, moving eastward. Wednesday brings some leftover severe weather to Maine and New England before the system finally exits east. That 3-day marathon from the northern plains to the Atlantic seaboard is the next 72-hour story. If you have family from Sunday's Wisconsin corridor through Tuesday's East Coast, they need this information. Here's what to do today, starting with Montana, South Dakota, and the conditional upper Midwest threats. If you are in Montana or South Dakota, severe weather can erupt rapidly this afternoon. Identify indoor shelter. If you're in Minneapolis, St. Paul, or Green Bay today, check radar before any outdoor activity. For Sunday across Minnesota and Wisconsin, do not leave shelter planning until the last moment Sunday afternoon. Know where you would shelter in your home during a tornado warning. Interior room, lowest floor, no windows. For Chicago, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh on Monday, have alerts turned on before you go to sleep Sunday night. A 2 a.m. tornado warning with 75 mph gusts is the Monday overnight scenario forecasters are most worried about. For the East Coast on Tuesday, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia, monitor Sunday and Monday model updates closely. If power goes out during extreme heat, leave your home. A structure without AC becomes dangerous within hours. Do not leave children or pets in unattended vehicles in the heat advisory zone. Interiors become lethal fast. 2 Timothy 1:7. God gave us not a spirit of fear, but of power and a sound mind. A sound mind means having the plan made before the storm, not scrambling. When the warning goes off, people who come through events like this are always the ones who planned before things became urgent. Check on elderly neighbors today. Heat and severe weather are both significantly more dangerous for older adults. A quick phone call or knock on the door before Sunday's storms can genuinely save a life. Share this with family in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Ohio, Virginia, or anywhere along Tuesday's East Coast corridor. A heads up from someone they trust is worth far more than any push notification they will swipe away. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Live coverage is possible Sunday and Monday as the main event unfolds. Here's the honest good news. This pattern has an end, visible in current model guidance. Behind Tuesday's storm system, a brief period of quieter weather returns to the central United States by midweek. Great Lakes and Ohio Valley see improving conditions Thursday and Friday as the system exits to the northeast. East Coast severe weather ends by Wednesday morning. Drier and slightly cooler air filters in behind the system. Northern Plains and Upper Midwest see a quieter stretch from Wednesday through Friday before the next impulse. For the Southwest, heat here is where the story becomes more complicated and more important to understand. Phoenix drops temporarily by early next week as monsoon pushes moisture in before the secondary ridge takes over. That secondary ridge runs hotter. Ensemble guidance shows 115 to 120 degrees returning to Palm Springs. That 125 to 130 degree potential is real, but uncertainty remains high at 8 to 10 days out. Daily records, monthly records, and possibly all-time heat records are on the table in the desert Southwest. That second heat wave is what emergency managers are now quietly watching more closely than the first. For Hawaii, the tropical system weakens on approach, keeping the most intense impact mostly offshore. Even a weakened tropical storm still brings storm surge, gusty winds, and coastal flooding concerns to Hawaii. Once Tuesday's storm exits, much of the eastern United States gets a genuine break from severe weather. That break will feel especially welcome after 3 consecutive days of organized severe weather across 7 states. Compound setups like this are hard to navigate, but people who know they are coming do just fine. You now have the numbers, the timing, and the city-by-city breakdown for every threat in this pattern. Dedicated tracking videos are coming for Sunday through Tuesday as the main event unfolds across the country. Like and subscribe if this helps you understand the next 72 hours. Updates continue through Tuesday. Now, the numbers that framed today's forecast, because they are the ones that matter most going forward. Minneapolis at 100 degrees heat. That is the only thing holding back 50-plus knots of tornado-capable shear. 13.2 million people inside today's marginal risk. From Minneapolis to Madison to Tucson. Category 2 approaching Honolulu, 992 millibars by Tuesday evening, 125 to 130 degrees possible next week. Same atmosphere, 3 separate disasters, one pattern that does not stop until Wednesday morning. Stay alert.